What's up, everybody? Rants and Reviews here with a basketball podcast, Boston Celtics. This will probably be the last one we do for a while because everything is kind of finished. Summer League is done. Free agency is done, more or less. And we have about 2 months to wait before the season tips off. So what I'd like to do in this podcast is just go over first Summer League because I did watch it and I do have some thoughts. Second, the Boston Celtics free agency period as a whole. And third, expectations for what next season is going to be. So let's get started. First is Summer League. Now, I get excited and overreact to Summer League every single season, it seems like. I always just get really pumped. I watch the games. I pull my hair out because things don't go the way I want them to. I overreact. And here's the thing about Summer League. It doesn't really mean anything. The problem with Summer League is that sometimes somebody performs really well and it carries on to the season and you say, oh, well, look, you could see that happening in Summer League. And sometimes a player plays really well and then you never hear from them again. So it really is a crapshoot as far as whether or not the results, what happens, what you see, what you notice in Summer League really means anything at all. But I will say, generally speaking, just very vaguely, what you try to look for is if you've been watching Summer League or these players through their careers, their young careers, you're trying to see a leap. You're trying to see some sort of leap. You're trying to see a player do something that they couldn't do the year before or play in a certain way that you were hoping they would evolve into. I think Jalen Brown is a great example of this because he played, I think, 3 consecutive years of Summer League back when the world was normal and not burning and on fire. And every year in Summer League, you saw Jalen Brown add something else to his game. First it was corner threes, then it was finishing around the rim in a left hand with his left hand. And then eventually you saw him improve his handles. Now, I think it was his 3rd year where he went to Summer League and he had one game, I think, where he just scored 28 points and just thrashed everybody. It was something like that. He just had this performance where you said, okay, he doesn't belong here anymore. He has evolved past this. And that's kind of the things that you're looking for in the Summer League. Now, the problem with that is that we didn't really have anyone on this roster that fit that mold, unless you want to say Romeo Langford, because this was his 3rd year. But this, I think, was his 1st year for Summer League because he was injured, I think, his 1st year. And then obviously last year, there was no Summer League because of COVID. So we didn't really have that player where you could say, well, this is what they did last year and this is what they did the year before. And now you want to see what they're doing this year. But what we were looking for, what I was looking for, a bunch of things. And some of them I saw and some of them I did not. So first of all, I think everybody wanted to get their eyes on Yam Madar, who was our 2nd round draft pick from the year before and a stash. And we wanted to see him. We really wanted to see him perform well in the Summer League. A lot of us had been hearing that he was playing really well overseas. And I think a lot of us wanted him to be on the roster this year, wanted him to show that he was good enough to be on the roster this year. That did not happen. The other thing, we got to see our 2nd round pick from this year, Begarim, the French player. And we weren't really expecting to see much from him, which is good because we didn't see much from him. And then obviously Naismith and Pritchard were returning. Their 2nd year players, but they didn't get to do Summer League last year. So this was really their 1st year of Summer League, but they have obviously played a year in the NBA. Now, this is what's so messed up about the Celtics is oh God, where to start? You look at a guy like Evan Fournier, who we traded 2 2nd round picks for. And everybody at the time said, we're basically getting him for free. 2nd round picks don't mean anything. And yet coming into this year's Summer League, what is everybody talking about? 2 second-round draft picks. So that's how poorly the Celtics have managed their assets, that we're like desperately clinging to, oh God, what can this second-round draft pick do? Which is ridiculous because obviously we know historically second-round draft picks hardly ever do anything. There are, of course, some very famous exceptions to that. So we gave away 2 second-round draft picks for Fournier, who then we just let walk in free agency. Goodbye, second-round draft picks. We had a couple of second-round draft picks playing in Summer League this year, Yamadar and Begarin, and they both were fine, not great, not bad. Madar had a really good first game that got everybody excited. I was excited. I was like, oh man, he's got a teardrop floater. He's got a good handle. He's feisty defensively. And then he just looked like crap the next 2 games, and then he got hurt. And so now he's going back overseas. And to be honest, we'll probably never hear from him again. Begarin as well showed some flashes, but nowhere near ready. And he's going overseas also. Now with Pritchard and Nesmith had a couple of games, especially Pritchard. Pritchard was consistently, I don't want to say spectacular, but I want to say dominant. And what you saw from him was a player who looked like he didn't belong. And that's what you want. You want to see a player who looks like he does not belong in Summer League competition. Because if they do look like they belong, that is not a good sign for how they're going to play in the NBA with real players, real competition. Nesmith, on the other hand, was wildly inconsistent, up and down, just like he has been previously in his short NBA career. He had a few games where he looked absolutely spectacular. His shot was falling. He was aggressive. He was putting the ball on the floor. He was finishing. He was doing things that he hadn't done before in the NBA, and that was great. And then he had a couple of games where he just looked lost and his shot was not falling and he looked like he belonged in the Summer League. So mixed results. I still believe in Nesmith. And I do think that he showed development from where he was last year. I still think he is a bit of a long-term project, and I don't know how much of an impact he's going to make this year. We really could use his shooting. I just don't know if his shot is consistent enough that it's going to find a way to really make a difference for us this year. Now, Pritchard, on the other hand, with Pritchard, there's no question that he can make an impact on this team because his shooting, his range, and his ability to make 3-pointers is an undeniable skill. It was really already there last year, and it's only gotten better. He has really, honestly, elite level shot making from beyond the 3-point line and handles. He really does. The issue is, does he have anything other than that? So he was really focusing on making plays and being a playmaker and running the point in Summer League. And he showed some ability to do that. But whether or not he's going to be able to do that at the NBA level, whether or not he's going to be able to put the ball on the floor and drive into the lane and ever finish around the rim is still to be determined. Whether or not he'll be a complete liability defensively or if he'll be just good enough to stay on the court is to be determined. But I think Pritchard is definitely going to have a role on this team. It's kind of interesting. Like we thought we drafted Nesmith to be the shot maker and to spread the floor. And I do still think that that's his role eventually. I just don't think he's quite ready. And who is ready for that role is Pritchard. So even though Pritchard is the point guard, I think he is the guy that's ready to be slotted in as that spread the floor shot maker because he really does have spectacular range and ability to make 3-pointers. Now, you might have noticed I did not say anything about Romeo Langford because Romeo Langford, I'm done. I'm done with him. I'm over it. So this was his 3rd year. This is his 3rd year in the NBA. Obviously, he's been injured all throughout his NBA career. He's been incredibly fragile, and he's been very frustrating because he's shown glimpses of potential, but he's never lived up to his draft position. And really, he hasn't shown much. Last year, he got on the floor because of his defense, which is quite funny because at Indiana and in high school as well, he was known as a slasher, a scorer. He was not known as a defender. And in the NBA, he's become known as a defender mainly because he's a solid athlete and he tries really hard. He has really good defensive instincts. But, the real reason he's known as a defender is because he can't score. He has no offensive game whatsoever. His shot is not great, and he has no ability to put the ball on the floor or to get to the rim or to finish around the rim or to play make for others. He really has nothing. He's Shemi Oshile. That's the reality. That's what we found out. We found out this summer league that Romeo Langford is a Shemi Oshile who can't stay healthy. And that is incredibly depressing because we actually just got rid of Shemi Oshile, which was great. And now we have a new one. So the curse of Shemi Oshile continues. Romeo Langford is Shemi Oshile 1.0. I'm done. I've talked myself into for so many years, like that, there's something there. Just if he could just stay healthy. That's the other thing. Apparently, he didn't play at the end of the summer league because he was injured again, hurt his wrist. And, there's all kinds of PR going on about, oh, it's not the wrist that he had injured before, or he's going to be fine. Like, honestly, at this point, does it even matter? Does it even matter when you get hurt over and over and over again? That's who you are as a player. And again, the times that he did play, and he did play a few games, he looked like he belonged, which is a horrible, horrible sign for a third-year player. He looked like he belonged with those summer league players. So I'm selling all of my Romeo stock. I just don't believe in him as a player at all anymore. And that was pretty depressing. So if you look at summer league as a whole, it was, you could almost treat it like a microcosm for last year's Celtics team, their whole season. You start off being really excited, and then you end by being really depressed because the Celtics actually started summer league undefeated. They were, I think, 4-0. They went to the championship game. Pritchard was killing it. He was spectacular. Yam Madar had a good first game. Begarin showed up to play. Romeo was not injured yet. And even Nesmith had one really, really great game. But again, Madar ended up being injured and not really showing anything overall. Begarin was clearly not ready. Romeo sucked and then got hurt. Nesmith was up and down. And even Pritchard, who was spectacular for those first 4 games, left the team to go play some pro-ams and drop like 100 points against a bunch of YMCA scrubs and plumbers. And then he came back for the last game, for the championship game, and was really, really bad. So basically in that final game, the championship game, the Celtics got absolutely slaughtered by the Sacramento Kings. I mean, it was a disgusting performance, and it really just left a sour taste over what should have been a decent summer league. But, when you wrap it up, when you look at the whole summer league overall, this is what we learned. And again, let me say this one more time, that the summer league doesn't mean anything. So I'm taking meaning from something that is meaningless. But this is what I learned from watching the summer league this year. Pritchard is better than he was last year, and he's definitely going to have a role in this team because of his shot making, but I don't know what else he's going to be able to do beyond that. Nesmith is better than last year, but I'm still not sure if he's ready. Begarin and Madar, we will probably never see again, but who knows? Romeo Langford is a scrub. He is Shemi Oshile. So I don't want to say we're not going to see him. We are going to see him, I think, because of his defensive abilities, just like Shemi got on the floor for his defensive abilities. And yeah, he'll hit a corner 3 every once in a while. And that's all you're ever going to get from Romeo Langford, besides a lot of injury reports. So that's really not great results from Summer League. And that kind of brings us to our next segment, which is free agency. What are all the moves that the Celtics made in free agency. And a lot of them I've obviously talked about already because they're old news. Like, for example, Kemba getting shipped out with a first-round draft pick. That was the first move, the first domino really to fall for the Celtics this offseason. And I was pretty lukewarm on it at the time, and I continue to be lukewarm. I mean, I get wanting to get Kemba's contract off of this team, getting himself off of this team, but I hated spending a first round draft pick to do it. At the time, people said, oh, well, it's fine because, it's only pick 16 or 17. And we got Moses Brown back, who is basically, we can pretend like he's our first round pick. But then Brad shipped Moses Brown off for like Josh Richardson. So we actually did give away our first round draft pick. Now, if you look at this year's draft, pick 16, Alperen Sengun, this center from Turkey, I think it's Turkey, got taken by the Houston Rockets, and he looked awesome in the summer league. He looked like a real player. And then the pick after that was Trey Murphy, who I think the Pelicans grabbed, pick 17, and he also looked really good. Now, there's not much beyond those two that I liked very much. Maybe Jalen Johnson, the former Duke prospect, had some really nice moments for Atlanta. But like, just looking at pick 16 and 17, which is literally right where the Celtics would have been picking, it seems like two really solid players were still available. And that was the whole reason I did not want to trade away our draft pick, because I really felt like this year's draft was quite deep and we might be able to get a solid player. But yeah, that goes right into how we built this roster in the offseason. Obviously, we got rid of Kemba and our draft pick. We got rid of Tristan Thompson, which is awesome. We got rid of Shemai Ojeleye, which I covered, which is awesome. Unfortunately, it looks like with Romeo Langford, we have a new Shemai Ojeleye on this team. We haven't been able to get rid of Carson Edwards yet, which is unfortunate. I would love for him to not be on this roster. Tremont Waters and Taco Fall are gone and replaced by, who do we have on two ways? We got, is it Max Strus? Or is that the guy we let go? We have some white guy that can shoot. That's who we have on a two-way. We got a guy who can really shoot the three, not do much else, cannot play defense, but he can really, really shoot it. So, and he also has size. So he's not a little guy like Tremont and Carson. So that's nice. Desmond Bain, I know you guys are probably tired of hearing me talk about Desmond Bain because he's not a Celtic, but we did draft him and then immediately trade him away for nothing. And he continued to shine. He was fantastic this year in the summer league for the Memphis Grizzlies. He was an amazing three-point shooter last year. Relatively solid defensively. And this year in summer league, he was even showing playmaking abilities. So I'm just never going to let that go. Like, my whole point here when talking about how the Celtics built their roster is, it's not a disaster, nothing really exciting, but there's just like this overwhelming sense of a dark cloud or a hangover of how we've managed some of our assets, just, getting rid of second round picks like they're nothing, drafting players and then giving them away so that we can keep Shemai Ojeleye, who's now not here, just not great stuff. And again, Desmond Bain is going to be a solid player in the NBA for a long time. Is he going to be an all-star? Almost assuredly not, but he's a rotation player. And, if you watch the Celtics team last year, you can see that they needed rotation players. Now, what Brad has decided to do instead, Brad Stevens, GM Brad Stevens, he seems to really be valuing experienced veterans and people who can play defense. Now, I like the idea of players that can play defense, but who knows if that actually translates. Everyone is talking about how they're looking at the Celtics roster and they're like, oh man, this team could really be special defensively. But honestly, that's what people were saying last year. Like, let's not forget that we brought Tristan Thompson in because he was supposed to be an elite defender. He was supposed to be like the foil of Enes Kanter. He was supposed to be like quite bad offensively, but amazing defensively. And he wasn't. Obviously, we knew Kemba was a weakness, but we still had Smart and Brown and Tatum. And then we had Tristan Thompson and we had Shemi Ojale. Oh, my goodness, LeBron stopper. So, we were supposed to be solid last year defensively, and we weren't. So everyone's saying, oh, these moves that Stevens has made, the Celtics look like they're going to be a lockdown unit defensively. Well, I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. I think some of the moves that Brad Stevens made were okay. God, what was it? What was okay? Here's what I liked. So the most recent news is the Celtics re-signing or extending, rather, Marcus Smart and Robert Williams. They both got 4-year extensions at a reasonable rate. And I like this. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Marcus Smart contract and what I'm worried about. But the fact is that Smart was drafted by the Celtics. He's been a Celtic longer than anybody else on the team. And we showed loyalty and we extended him. And I do like that. I like teams that build up their own players, like the Milwaukee Bucks last year, winning it all with a lot of their homegrown talent. I appreciate that the Celtics went that route. It's a nice, it's just a nice feeling. It's a nice story for us fans. It's much different than when we were, sacrificing IT to go after douchebag Kyrie. So I like it from that sense. I like the fact that we're rewarding our own players, extending our own players. I especially love the Robert Williams one. I am a huge Robert Williams fan. I think he is incredible. Now, obviously, Robert Williams does not stay healthy. I don't even want to say that he has trouble staying healthy because I don't think he ever has stayed healthy. So we can just say at this point, Robert Williams does not stay healthy. So you might say, well, Adam, why would the Celtics extend Robert Williams if he can't stay healthy? And the answer to that question is because when he is healthy, he's incredible. He's one of the best players in the Celtics. I don't know if people quite understand how good he is, how much of an impact he makes when he's on the floor. Now, the issue, of course, is him not being on the floor, him being injured, him only being able to play 25 minutes a game. So the reason I love this extension is because I feel like if you look at Robert Williams' contract and how it's going to play out over the next 4 years, I feel like that's what they paid for. I feel like they paid for a guy who is incredible when he plays, but obviously is not always available. So I liked that they extended him because, I don't think that Williams is a health risk in the sense of like he's going to be unavailable for an entire season. I think he's just the kind of guy who gets, he's delicate. He gets nicked up a lot and he's going to miss games. You'd be happy to see him maybe play 50 games out of an 80-game season. But when he's out there, he is so good that I think the contract will easily be worth it. And then you just cross your fingers and you just hope, well, man, if he could just have like 1 or 2 years where he stays healthy for the majority of it, 60, 70 games, only misses like a dozen games, then I think you're getting a steal with that contract. Now with the Marcus contract, again, I don't think they're paying him too much. It's just I guess it's just a question of, do you like Marcus Smart? Because he really brings strong feelings out of people. Some people love him, some people hate him. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, with Marcus Smart, you either love him or you hate him. And I don't really agree with that because I definitely love him and I also definitely hate him. I have like a flip-flop back and forth relationship with Marcus Smart through his entire tenure as a Celtic. I love his toughness. I loved, I'm going to say past tense, his defense. I hate his shot selection. I hate that he thinks he's a good shooter. And he's clearly one of the worst shooters the NBA has ever seen statistically. So I don't know. How do I feel about Marcus Smart for another 4 years? I really don't know. The thing that I'm worried about more than anything is that Marcus Smart's value comes from his ability to play defense. He has been an all defensive level player in the NBA before. He was not that player last year. Now, whether that's COVID or he was nicked up or whatever, he was not a good defensive player last year. It wasn't bad. But again, we're talking about a guy who is an all defensive level NBA player when he's at his best. And he wasn't last year. So what I'm really scared of is that, he's a little bit older. He's been injured, on and off a lot throughout his career, and that he has just worn down a little bit, and that he's lost a step. He's not as fast as he used to be. And he already wasn't that fast to begin with. This is what I'm really scared of, because if Marcus Smart's defense is no longer at an elite level, if he has become like a league average defender or slightly above, then that is not a good contract that we have just given him and locked ourselves into, because he is always going to be one of the worst, most inefficient scorers in the entire NBA. He will never be a good shooter. He will never be an efficient scorer. He will never be a plus on that side of the ball. So then if you have that in combination with somebody who's a league average or slightly above defender, that's it's not good. Now, the good thing is Marcus Smart has improved his playmaking every single year. And last year, he was the best passer on the Celtics team. And based on who we've brought in this offseason, he will still be the best passer on the Celtics team. And this is a team that desperately needs playmakers. So he obviously does have value on that end. Everybody is expecting him to be the starting point guard for this team. So you would expect him to be more in that sort of a role, a playmaking role, if he's going to be starting along Tatum and Brown, who obviously are going to be taking most of the shots. So, we'll see, to be determined. I'm still glad they extended him. But, I really am just hoping that his defense bounces back this year, that he can just focus on the defensive side and not focus on taking a bunch of shots. With Schroeder into the mix, adding Dennis Schroeder, hopefully, and Pritchard getting more minutes, and maybe even Nesmith being ready a little bit, and Richardson, who I think is a scrub but exists on this team, hopefully he'll be taking less shots next year. So those two moves I was okay with. Not exciting, but okay with. We still have Chris Dunn on the roster, which again, is a guy who I don't even know if he really belongs in the NBA right now. He can play defense. He can't seem to stay healthy. He's not a good offensive player. Josh Richardson, again, I talked about, is a guy that I just think is just not a very good basketball player. If you look at his statistics, he's basically Marcus Smart without the passing and not as good at defense. He scores 10, 12 points a game on not very good percentages, not a good shooter. I think, everyone remembers that 1 year he had in Miami, and they think that's who he is. But if you look at his stats throughout his career, that year in Miami was actually an outlier. That was by far his best year. And every other year, he's been more of this 12 points per game, 33% from three, 42% from the field, a couple of assists. So, again, not excited at all about him being a part of this team. If you look at the Celtics roster, we still definitely have a few glaring issues. It still looks like we're going to struggle to shoot the ball. And that is obviously very worrying, considering that seems to be where the NBA is heading, is shooting the ball, shooting threes, scoring, high scoring games. Defense really doesn't matter that much, matters a little bit, matters more in the playoffs. But I just don't know if the Celtics are going to be able to keep up with some of the more high powered offenses in the NBA. So did I cover everything? I think so. Horford, sure. Thompson gone. Richardson in, Dennis Schroeder. I didn't really talk that much about Dennis Schroeder. I'm fine with the Schroeder signing. I mean, I don't like Schroeder as a player at all. I don't think he fits this team at all, but it's such a value. It's such a bargain contract. And, obviously he's getting incredibly underpaid and it's a 1-year contract. So, he has to play. Like, people are worried, like, cause he's notoriously he's known as a selfish player. And people are like, well, no, he's just going to come in here and he's going to be a selfish player. And I don't really think that that's true. I don't think he can afford to be a selfish player. He's playing for a contract. And, he obviously messed up the last one really, really, really badly. So I don't think he's going to mess up this situation. I think he's going to do whatever the coach asks of him. I think he's going to try to be the best teammate that he can be. I also think the coach is going to put him in a position to succeed. I think he's going to be, he's going to have that sixth man role again. He's going to be able to come on with these bench units with guys like Romeo who can't score and Grant Williams who can't score, and he'll be taking all the shots, and that's fine. The Celtics actually needed a player like that last year and didn't have one. So, that's who I thought Kemba should have been last year. And Kemba, obviously, they were just too chicken shit to put him in that role. And obviously, I think they're going to be fine sliding Schroeder into that role. So that at least is good. So let's get to the third and final part of this podcast. I've covered Summer League. I've covered the free agents, transactions, all that stuff. The last piece is like, what do we expect out of this team for next season? And this is maybe I don't want to say I'm going to be positive because it's probably misleading, but I feel better about this season than I do about thinking about last season, which I guess isn't saying much since last season was probably the worst Celtics season I can ever remember as far as like what I expected versus what I got. What I expected was a really talented team that could maybe make a push to get into the finals. What I got was a team that was almost impossible to watch. They were disgusting to watch. They played an awful brand of basketball. They were lazy. They didn't try hard. They were near impossible to root for. So I guess the silver lining of that is that I think expectations for what this team is going to do this year have drastically lowered. And I think that's a good thing because hopefully, people are looking at this team and what to expect from it next year in a much more realistic light, so that hopefully we won't get so depressed when this team is slightly above 500, which is kind of what I'm expecting. So yeah, I think the Celtics are going to be okay next year. I don't think they're going to be great. I don't think they have the potential to be great. I don't think they're going to be bad. And I do think they're going to be more fun to watch than last year. Obviously, again, the bar is on the floor. So they literally just have to be better than nothing to be more fun to watch than last year. But that's also not just my hope, but my goal. This is not a championship team. This is not a championship roster. And I'm fine with that. Everyone that is like championship or bust, I think that's a crazy way to watch sports and to follow your sports teams when, that leaves 29 fan bases upset at the end of the year. So, I think obviously you want a competitive team. You want your team making smart moves. You want players that are exciting to watch that you can root for. I think we have a lot of those things. I love Pritchard. I love Robert Williams. Tatum still has the ability he has the potential and the ability to crack that like top 5 player in the NBA echelon for sure. Whether he'll do it or not, who knows? But that's part of the excitement of watching. Jalen Brown, hopefully he'll get back to playing defense this year and, balance his offense and defense a little bit better than he did last year. But there's a lot of players to still be excited about on this team. And, we have a new coach and hopefully the coach, just gets them to play harder. That's the number one thing I think me as a Celtics fan is looking for, and I imagine a lot of people would agree with me, it's just having a team that you can root for, having a team that plays hard and plays the right way. And so then you can cheer for them, because last year I did not feel that way. And I think a lot of people, felt similarly. So I think the Celtics, realistically, their roof, their ceiling is probably like the fourth seed in the East, maybe third. I think third is absolute best case scenario. Milwaukee and the Brooklyn Nets are just in a whole other world than where the Celtics are at. But below them, things get a bit murky. I think most people are probably expecting Miami to be up around the top there. Atlanta obviously has a really young and talented team. New York's going to be competitive. You can never count out Toronto, even though they weren't great last year. Indiana is always competitive. So I think, I'm expecting the Celtics to probably be around the 6th seed, but, 3 seed is the absolute echelon, the top tier of what is possible for this team, I think. And I think the bottom tier is playing. If things go wrong, if things, if this team doesn't figure out how to play hard and play competitively, we could be involved in another play-in next year, because the East is not as good as the West, not as top heavy or talented as the West, but there are a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference that are getting better, that are improving. So, we'll see. I think it's going to be a really exciting year. I think a lot of the rookies that are coming into the NBA this next season are going to be really, really exciting and fun to watch. Unfortunately, the Celtics don't have any of them, but I do still love our draft class from last year. I love Pritchard. I love Nesmith. And I love that Robert Williams is sticking around. So, yeah, those are my thoughts and on everything that's happened in the last month or two. And hopefully this podcast will hold us over until the season starts. Maybe I'll do like a power rankings for the NBA like I did last year before the season starts. But it's going to be a couple of quiet months now since we've kind of wrapped everything up. So if there's anything in this video that you agreed with or didn't agree with, then comment below. If you follow my videos, you must realize that there's always hundreds of comments, to the videos below. So, just scroll down and read them all and add your own thoughts. And I'll see you next time on Ransom Reviews.